I'm Ann Quintano, and I just completed my 2-week local New York City fellowship, which was an extraordinary experience. And my background is in both art and writing. And yeah, I mean, I guess I know I've said this before. I don't really define myself as an artist or a writer, because I think that that's a whole other level. But I consider myself a very creative person, and I make art and I write stories and stuff. And creativity is really central to my life.
I'm just curious how you're feeling like right now, having just completed 2 weeks of activities and following a very like highly scheduled itinerary in New York.
Well, I think I was up really early this morning, like I couldn't kind of sleep. So I did, the laundry early, and then I went out like it was a day that was planned, and I went to the East Village and Tompkins Square Park. And so it was like kind of like keeping the whole notion of like, this is my little itinerary for today. I'm going to go hang out in the East Village. So I just found the structure of that, of the commitment that, I have to do it because I committed to it. I have to do this activity, like it or not, feeling able or not. And so that's a thing that I think is really important for me to take with me, to kind of do that for myself, because I know I'm much more able than I thought I was. Like I discovered that in a way. And so I have I think in how I feel today, I have some anxiety about whether I'll be able to integrate those things and keep it alive, or if I'm going to, leave that all behind in the apartment, as I said, and kind of drift into more just like not doing enough, not living an expansive, full life. And it's funny because I think in the past, like my life was very rich and I did live outside the box. And the past couple of years, it's just been something different. So this, I think, really kickstarts me. So I'm both sad and anxious and excited. And yeah, like I didn't want to think of it just like structuring my life to do more things and stuff, because the whole it goes much deeper than that. On this level, it's about doing all these activities, doing things that are uncomfortable or unfamiliar, but to drop down another level where you kind of incorporate those things, even if you don't literally do all these activities. Though I do want to also do that. I do want to add more activities and exploration. But I think I also ran into a lot of places where I do get blocked, personally. And I think that winds up blocking your art. Like if you're not risk taking in your own life, then you're not risk taking in your art. I mean, they're related. So I was surprised, for instance, at how how anxious I could get about being lost, traveling, being lost, which is a wonderful metaphor on a whole other level. But and how that interferes with me then doing things. If I don't have like a plan, a visual map, where I'm going, and a plan and everything. And I think that it's not a good way to live with so much control and plan. You have to be able to live out the spontaneity and adventuresomeness and curiosity and all those things. So those are some of the things think about integrating into my life in a deeper way.
Yeah, it's one of my questions that I'm glad you brought up about being lost, and kind of did it come up when you were reading the schedule, or did it come up kind of in the moment when you realized like, oh wait, I've lost where I am, I've lost my bearings about where I am? Or
I think in a very literal, concrete sense, in the traveling, like I think like knowing that I was going to Crown Heights. I think I put this in my journal, and my context for Crown Heights is the riots that were going on. That's probably before your time, but And, you know, like that, it's a rough neighborhood, or going into the South Bronx, where also I know is rough neighborhood and unknown territory to me. So the vulnerability of that, or not feeling safe, and not having, you know, in that literal sense, not having just the geographical bearings and stuff. Or like when I saw that I had to go to Greenwood Cemetery at night and the event ended at 10:30, I was like, oh no. That was like, yeah, I think the thing of being vulnerable, and that can be on so many levels, but on this, it was a very literal, you know, kind of level. But, and again, I think how it relates to creativity, you have to be able to be vulnerable, to be open, to be, and take risks. So those, just the traveling things became a big source of, you know, kind of stretching myself in some ways.
I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the activities themselves. And I like to get a sense of like what activities felt the most challenging, or what activity might have surprised you the most. But do you have one that you would pick as maybe one that challenged you the most?
Well, I think, you know, I think of like there's different ways of being challenged, intellectually or physically. I certainly felt physically challenged by a couple of things, which, yeah, that was, yeah, that's just something else. But intellectually or something being challenged, I think, like fighting the dark was like a big thing for me. Like also feeling like how could I not have known so much of that, and also even the goddamn the pusher man, the dope is death. As I think I mentioned in my journal, I was working in drug addiction at that time for the Addiction Services Agency, and even all the details of that were, though I was very young, were unknown to me, even being kind of in that field. So and yeah, and like the tour of the Hasidic community, which was one of my favorite things. That was great, but also just like understanding and all the information that was totally foreign to me. So all those things were very expanding for my mind. Yeah. And trying to think what else. And then I realized, you know, it's funny you talk about being open, like with the Scientology. I think I wasn't like open to that, because I realized even in my response that I wrote about is like, you know, I was like derogatory, and I thought later, wow, I mean, I made judgments about it. I entered with judgments, not even so much preconceived. I didn't really know much of Scientology, except you kind of hear this and that. But as I was experiencing it, I could see I was like, oh, well, this is this. And, you know,
Yeah.
So I thought those were moments where I did lean into the shutting down to it.
I'm also wondering about maybe an activity that you read and were like, yeah, brought up something, and then by the end of the activity, it was a surprising result. So like we've talked a little bit about it already, of like the kind of anxiety that reading something on paper instills, and then actually doing it.
Yeah, like I think the Greenwood Cemetery was a wonderful experience and something very different that so once I got past the oh my God, I'm going to be out there at 10:30 at night in the dark in a cemetery far from my home. Once I got past that and just entered into the experience of it, it was really quite wonderful and fun and stuff. And then oh, and I think even some of the things, like I tend to be very much a loner, and I don't interact a lot socially with people. So I think I also had like stuff, you know, some, I don't know if it's really apprehension, but a little bit about like then going into a group situation where you're with a bunch of volunteers. You're doing like at the composting place, a number of people in Crotona Park, a number of people, or even the virtual things with different activities. And I found that surprising in a way that I felt really comfortable with the people, and it was like a really nice experience. And so, I mean, that was a good experience for me, just to find like it's not so, you know, not so frightening or something to be to be thrown in among strangers.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I'd love to talk a little bit about journaling
Mhm.
and what that experience has been like these past 2 weeks for you.
That was interesting because I don't keep a journal, and the writing that I do is fiction and, you know, characters and distant from myself. I mean, actually, obviously, all writing is autobiographical, as they say, but the characters serve to buffer me from being personal about stuff. So the journal, I was very surprised that I was very kind of personal experience too. It wasn't like just, well, I did this, I did this, I did this. It was, you know, kind of more revealing. So that was a whole new experience for me. I haven't done anything like that. And I guess if I thought beforehand that the journal was going to also have like some self-revelatory stuff, I would be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, but yeah, but it became very comfortable to do that. So and yeah, I got into it, and then I thought I'm probably writing more than I should, because I was really like describing everything and then my experience of it. So it was a good experience, and a different experience for me. I haven't done that kind of writing and sharing stuff. So.
A big premise. There's so many things about this fellowship, but one of the main ones is to really pause your creative work and yeah, leave your materials at home, if you will. And I know you described a moment at Lincoln Center that you would have maybe sketched or something, and describing that not having those tools, you know, created a different experience. So I'm wondering kind of what that was like these past 2 weeks of not having those creative materials with you.
Yeah, I found it difficult at first, but then I got into it. I think the way I kind of interact with the world is through art, and let's say not even art in the larger sense, but just the day by day sketching, or, you know, doing some urban sketching, or translating my day into like little drawings and stuff. So that's how I interact with the world in a sense. And so that felt really difficult at first. And then, yeah, I was aware there were times when I thought, oh, I really like that person over there. But, and not being able to do it, I realized though that even though I think when I draw like people, when I sketch people, like rapidly, just, you know, gesture sketching in the city, that I'm seeing them, you know, because I'm looking at them and seeing them, that I realize that the art, in a sense, sometimes interferes with me seeing, because then I'm like concentrating on doing the drawing as well, looking back and forth, but doing the drawing. So with that set aside, I was really seeing more, in a sense. And that kind of surprised me, because I think, oh, well, I see so much more because I'm concentrating on drawing. But yeah, I actually saw more setting aside the sketchbook. Like a really strong thing for me is realizing that I am much more capable on many levels than I thought I was. And, you know, that I have more confidence, and I think, oh, I can really do this. And I can also do a lot in one day, like just extended thing. I have more energy than I realized I had, and how like doing, and the excitement of doing energizes you, and it's the opposite of exhaustion. It really works the other way. It's like so energizing. And so that's like a big thing to take with me, because how I live out my days will be, you know, day by day will be informed by that. Like, oh, I can do this. I can, you know, do it. And